It was on a day so cold the air felt like it could crack that my stepmother decided I was no longer welcome in our home, all because of a single, misplaced radish. Left shivering and with a gnawing hunger in my stomach, I wandered until I found a house where someone had carelessly left a window ajar, and I climbed through it, seeking only a temporary escape from the biting wind. The house belonged to an elderly woman whose mind was not as sharp as it once was. In her confused state, she mistook me for her granddaughter, a girl who had passed away years ago. I didn't correct her. Instead, I stepped into the role she offered, and we began a new life together, two strangers depending on one another for survival and solace. It was only when I discovered her private journal that I understood the true depth of her sorrow. She had been making plans to end her own life. The cold had settled over the village, driving everyone indoors to the warmth of their hearths. Everyone, that is, except for me. My stepmother had me outside in the bitter air of the yard, my task to wash a large basin of radishes for winter storage. "Don't you dare slow down," she'd snapped, her voice as sharp as the frost forming on the ground. "It's getting colder. If we don't put food away now, do you expect us to starve?" She refused to let me wear gloves, insisting I couldn't get the vegetables sufficiently clean with them on. Warm water was also out of the question. That would be a foolish waste of fuel. Within minutes, my hands were numb and swollen, turning a painful shade of red. As I tried to carry the heavy basin, my clumsy, frozen fingers lost their grip and I tripped. The radishes spilled across the frozen dirt, scattering like startled marbles, some rolling as if they had sprouted legs and were making a bid for freedom. I scrambled after them, but they seemed to elude my grasp, rolling farther and farther until they came to a stop in the muck of the pig pen. My stepmother appeared, planting her hands on her hips, her face a mask of theatrical disappointment. "You are absolutely useless," she sighed, rolling her eyes. "When you get married, a husband would be right to beat you at least 3 times a day." My father, who had been observing from the porch, nodded in agreement. "She eats all day, getting taller but not an ounce smarter. Can't even manage one simple task correctly. What good will you ever be?" His words were a flat, final judgment. "Get out," my stepmother commanded. "Go and think about what a failure you are. Don't you come back until you've learned a lesson." Then, her tone shifted, becoming sickly sweet as she leaned against my father's shoulder. "Oh, darling, was I too severe? It's only for her own good. A bit of tough love now is far better than her being rejected by her in-laws down the line." My father gave her waist a little squeeze. "You're right, of course. You truly know how to raise a child. I know she's in good hands with you." A moment later, my small backpack was tossed out onto the path, and the heavy front gate slammed shut behind me, the sound echoing with finality. My breath plumed in the frigid air as I rubbed my raw hands together, trying to coax some warmth back into them. The old shoes I wore, stretched and worn from countless hours of running and playing, had split along the seams, offering no protection. The frozen ground felt like a razor blade against the soles of my feet, but I walked forward, refusing to look back at the house that was no longer my home. I made a quiet promise to myself then and there. I would rather freeze to death on this road than ever return. My mind drifted to the time just after my mother's passing. Before she was even cold in her grave, my father had been desperate to find a new wife. From the moment my stepmother started to show her true colors, I knew this day was an inevitability. When she first married my father, she had made a grand pronouncement in front of our relatives that she would love and treat me as her very own daughter. In private, however, her eyes held no kindness for me. She once told me I was too old, that it was too late for me to ever truly warm up to her. So there was no point in her even trying to be nice. At home, she found fault with my every action. The way I breathed was wrong. The way I walked was clumsy. She simply could not stand the sight of me and had frequently suggested sending me away to live with my grandmother. But my grandmother was gone, and I had long since lost contact with my uncle. The truth was simple. I was unwanted, a burden to everyone. I walked until the familiar houses of my village gave way to a desolate block of rundown buildings at the edge of town, all slated for demolition, standing empty and dark against the gray sky. A cold, steady rain began to fall, soaking through my thin jacket. I knew if I didn't find shelter soon, I wouldn't survive the night. I slapped my own cheeks a few times, trying to fight off the encroaching numbness and exhaustion. My legs felt like they were made of lead, but some deep instinct pushed me forward. In the distance, a tiny star-like flicker of light appeared in the oppressive darkness. As I drew closer, it grew into a soft, inviting flame emanating from a half-open window. A quick glance around revealed no signs of life, so I hoisted myself up and climbed inside. A wave of profound warmth washed over me, so sudden and complete that for a moment I thought I was hallucinating, like the little match girl in the story my mother used to read to me. I wondered if this was what dying felt like. I forced my eyes to stay open, half expecting to see a grand feast laid out on a table, perhaps even my mother waiting for me with a warm smile. But there was nothing, just a small, quiet room. I curled myself into a tight ball in a corner, clutching my backpack to my chest, and let the comforting warmth cradle me as I drifted into a deep sleep. "Wake up, dear." A pair of withered, gentle hands were shaking my shoulders. I blinked my eyes open and looked up into a pair of cloudy, unfocused eyes. My face immediately flushed with shame, the heat of a thief caught red-handed. "You must be the new housekeeper my son hired, are you? Sleeping on your very first day on the job? If you do that again, I'll have to dock your pay," she said, attempting a stern expression that didn't quite fit her gentle face. I was so startled and scared that I could only stammer, my body trembling, before finally just nodding my head in guilty agreement. She waved a dismissive hand at me, telling me to stop dawdling and get to my duties. "Look at this mess," she clucked. "This place is in dire need of a proper cleaning, and I'm hungry. Go and make me a bowl of noodles. We'll see what you're made of. If your cooking isn't any good, I won't be keeping you." I scrambled to my feet and, after fumbling around for a few minutes, located the kitchen. Amidst a clatter of pots and pans, I managed to prepare a simple bowl of noodles, even frying an egg to place on top. My hands shook as I carried the bowl to the small dining table and helped the old woman into her chair. She glanced down at it with an air of disdain. "You call this cooking? You expect to be a professional housekeeper with skills like these? Just the sight of it is enough to make me lose my appetite." I stood there, mortified and unsure of what to do, my hands twisting the hem of my shirt so hard I nearly tore the fabric. "You eat it," she said finally. "It's a shame to let food go to waste." With that, she turned and shuffled into her bedroom, leaving me alone in the dining room. I sat down and quickly devoured the noodles. I figured I was going to be thrown out soon anyway, so I might as well leave on a full stomach. Just as I had swallowed the last spoonful of broth, the old woman emerged from her room. She was carrying a set of clean bedding, which she tossed onto the bed in the small guest room. She then jutted her chin in my direction. "You'll sleep in here from now on. It's right next to my room. Don't sleep too soundly at night. If you hear me call for anything, I expect you to come right away." And with that, she retired for the night. Lying in the surprisingly comfortable bed, I pinched my arm hard. The sharp sting confirmed it wasn't a dream. I didn't dare to close my eyes for the entire night, straining my ears for any sound from the adjacent room. The old woman's snores, a steady, rhythmic rise and fall, filled the quiet house, and for reasons I couldn't explain, the sound was deeply comforting. As soon as the first light of dawn broke, I grabbed my backpack and slipped out of the house. I had to find a way to earn some money, and quickly. I went to several small restaurants to ask for work, but the moment they saw the backpack slung over my shoulder, they all turned me away. "Young lady, you're a student. You should be in school, not looking for work," one owner said. "Stop messing around and go home to your parents." One kind-hearted woman refused to let me leave, insisting she was going to call the police to help me find my family. I was so terrified that I turned and bolted out of her shop. I gritted my teeth, swearing to myself that I would find a way to survive on my own. If no one was willing to hire me, I could at least collect cans and bottles from the trash. There had to be a way for me to get enough to eat in this city. I spent the morning rummaging through trash cans across half the city, and the money I made from selling the bottles and cardboard was just enough to buy a bowl of hot beef noodle soup. After I finished eating, I saw a supermarket unloading a delivery truck, and mustering all my courage, I shamelessly walked over and offered to help. The owner, a kind man, took pity on me and promised to give me $50 if I helped them finish unloading the entire truck. "Having a tough time, kid?" he asked gently. Don't you worry, we've all got our own two hands. As long as you're willing to work hard, you won't ever starve. Without another word, I jumped onto the back of the truck and began hauling down boxes. It was a large shipment of food and drinks, cases of instant noodles, bread, spices, and more. Determined to earn my pay, I deliberately chose the heaviest boxes to carry. Sweat soon blurred my vision, and I clenched my jaw so hard it ached, moving like a robot on a single-minded mission. A few of the women who worked at the store saw my frenzied pace and called out, "Take it easy, kid. Take a break and have some water." When the truck was finally empty and the owner pressed the money into my hand, I was so overcome with a sense of accomplishment that I let out a few triumphant shouts at the sky, tears of relief streaming down my face. If my mother were still alive, she never would have allowed her child to end up in such a state. Suddenly, someone tapped me on the shoulder. "Lily, I couldn't find you anywhere this morning. I was worried sick. Come on, let's go home to Grandma." I turned around to see the old woman from the house. Her back was hunched over and her body looked as frail as a dry leaf, about to be swept away by the wind. I asked her who Lily was. Her tired eyes instantly lit up with a brilliant spark. "My granddaughter," she said, her voice filled with love. "I raised her myself, you know. I held her in my arms every night as she slept. Wait a minute. Aren't you Lily?" I looked at her confused, hopeful face, and then down at her outstretched hand. I took it. "Yes," I said softly. "I'm Lily." On the walk back to her house, a few of the neighbors who were outside pointed at me and whispered to each other. "Look, the old lady found herself another stray. Hasn't she learned her lesson by now?" I know, right? At her age, you'd think her memory would be better. It's no wonder her son can't stand to be around her. It must be so tough, dying all alone like that. She clutched my hand tightly, as if she were afraid I might vanish into thin air if she blinked. There, Lily," she cooed. "Grandma will make you some of your favorite dumplings." She rolled up her sleeves to begin kneading the dough, occasionally wiping at her eyes with the corner of her apron. While we were eating, she asked me why I had run away from home without saying a word. "I followed you for a while this morning," she said. "I saw you collecting recyclables and helping those people move boxes. Don't you want your grandma anymore?" A half-chewed dumpling got stuck in my throat and I struggled to swallow. I finally managed to force out the words, "Grandma, I want to go to school." Yes, of course," she said, her face breaking into a wide smile. "That's my Lily, such a good, smart girl." With a look of mystery, she disappeared into her room and came back with a bank card. "Look," she whispered. "Grandma has a little nest egg saved up. Nobody knows about this. It's all for my Lily's education." The small plastic card felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds in my hand. I felt a desperate urge to wake up from what felt like an elaborate dream. We were complete strangers. I couldn't possibly accept such a generous gift from her. Besides, she was old and frail. I didn't know if she would even be around long enough for me to one day repay her kindness. I gently helped her over to the sofa and tucked the card back into the pocket of her sweater. "I'm so sorry, Grandma," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "I'm not Lily. You have the wrong person. I do want to go to school, but I can't trick you like this, not while you're unwell. I'm a hard worker, you see." In just one day, not only did I not go hungry, but I also earned $50. Trust me, I can do this. Once I make it through this winter, I'll be like the dead grass on the mountains. I'll grow back in the spring. Her eyes grew more and more confused as I spoke. Her hand, its skin as dry and thin as bark, stroked my hair and then squeezed my arm. She leaned in close, as if trying to get a better look at me, to see the truth in my face. "You are Lily," she insisted. "Don't you think I would recognize the very girl I raised myself?" She held the card out to me again, but I shook my head firmly. Her face suddenly crumpled and she began to sob. "You still hate me, don't you? I remember that winter. It was just as cold as this one. I took in a man who was freezing to death outside. I only wanted to save his life, but I never imagined that when he woke up, he would set his sights on you. Oh, my poor Lily. You were so young. I can't even begin to imagine how you survived something so horrible. Hate me. Everyone should hate me. Your father hasn't come to see me in almost 10 years. It is all my fault. She clutched at the fabric over her chest, her breathing becoming so strained and ragged that her face turned a frightening shade of purple. Suddenly, her eyes darted to the fruit bowl on the table. She grabbed a small fruit knife and, before I could react, plunged it into her own thigh. I'm the most useless grandmother in the entire world, she wailed. The sight of the blood made me scream. I threw myself forward, snatched the knife from her hand, and pulled the hysterical woman into a tight, desperate embrace. Grandma, I'm Lily, I cried, my own tears mixing with hers. I don't hate you. I really, really don't. I patted her back gently, and her frantic sobs gradually subsided. She curled up in my arms like a frightened, ancient cat. After I got her into bed and was tucking the covers around her, I found a small, worn notebook on her nightstand. The cover read, Eleanor Vance's Memos. So that was her name, Eleanor. From now on, I decided, I would call her Grandma Eleanor. I opened the notebook. The first sentence read, My head is getting fuzzier and fuzzier lately. I should write down what I need to do while I'm still thinking clearly. I flipped to the most recent entries. I'm old now. There's nothing left to write. Sigh, why am I still breathing? I had it all planned out last time, how to leave this world. How did my muddled brain manage to forget even how to die? Maybe I'll die next year. My son is finally talking to me again. He even hired a housekeeper for me. What housekeeper? It was all a lie. She worked for one day and then ran off. Whatever. There's no point in living anymore. No, I have to find Lily. I remember she was staying here last night. It was a thick notebook, but there wasn't much written inside. Perhaps the past was too painful for her to commit to paper, and the future held no promise worth recording. Grandma Eleanor, it seems like we were destined to find each other. You gave me a roof over my head when I was alone on the streets. So now, when you're all alone, let me be the one to stay by your side. The next morning, when she woke up, she looked at me with an expression of pure surprise. Who are you? What are you doing in my house? I simply smiled and began to gently comb her hair. Grandma, it's me, Lily. The sun is shining so beautifully today. Let me take you outside for a walk. Just then, there was a loud knock at the door. I opened it to find a man glaring at me, his teeth clenched in anger. Who the hell is this stray kid? How dare you pretend to be my daughter? I looked awkwardly back at Grandma Eleanor, frozen in place, unsure if I should stay or leave. He strode past me into the house and flopped down onto the sofa, crossing his legs casually. He waved Grandma Eleanor over. She seemed terrified of him, trembling as she tried to hide behind me. Old woman, you've lived in this house long enough, haven't you? I'm a bit short on cash right now, and I'm planning to sell it. Life isn't going to be so comfortable for you anymore. He dug in his ear with his pinky finger, then shot me an impatient glare. Hey, you stray kid, don't you have any sense? Can't you see we're talking about family business here? Get the hell out. Being yelled at like that stung deeply. After all, it was their home, not mine. My face burned with shame. As I turned to leave, Grandma Eleanor grabbed my arm in a death grip. Lily, don't go. Don't you leave your grandma. The man across from us exploded with rage. Who's Lily? Are you completely senile? Our Lily has been dead for years. You killed her, remember? The veins on his forehead bulged as he pointed a trembling finger at Grandma Eleanor's head, his roar shaking the small room. Grandma Eleanor clutched her chest, gasping for air. She spun around a few times in a disoriented circle and then collapsed onto the floor. I panicked, not knowing what to do. On pure instinct, I pressed my finger firmly on the spot under her nose. She took a long, shuddering breath, and her eyes slowly fluttered open. My heart finally settled back into my chest. Martin, she said, her voice surprisingly strong. Search your conscience. Can you swear to God and say that I was really the one who hurt Lily? That monster. Wasn't he the one you brought into this house? Martin's eyes darted away guiltily. He turned his head and silently lit a cigarette. Grandma Eleanor's cloudy eyes suddenly became sharp and bright. She stood up, using my hand for support, her posture becoming straight and proud. This house is mine. As long as I am alive, you can forget about ever getting your hands on it. Martin stubbed out his cigarette and looked at her in disbelief. Is your head clear now? Have you been skipping your medication again? Mom, I'm your son. You have to help me. I owe a lot of money this time. If I can't pay it back, they're going to cut off my hands and my feet. Grandma Eleanor slapped him hard across the face. Does your wife know about this? She can't find out. She'll definitely divorce me if she does. She's already bailed me out so many times over the years. If this gets out, her family will kill me. Mom, I've got it all figured out. You just tell everyone that you have cancer and you need money for the treatment. That way, selling the house will make perfect sense. It's not like you haven't taken the fall for me before. What's one more time? You're my mother, after all. Grandma Eleanor stomped her foot in fury. I'm your mother, so I owe you my entire life? You were the one who made the mistakes, but you took advantage of my confused mind, brainwashing me day after day, spreading rumors everywhere until everyone in town was pointing their fingers at me. Even I started to believe it. But I do have my clear moments. A few months ago, I had someone look at those pills you were giving me. They're not good for me. I stopped taking them, and my mind has been getting clearer every single day. All the wicked things you've done, they're all coming back to me one by one. Right after you got married, you decided you were too good for this old woman. You and your wife went around ruining my reputation until I was known as the monster-in-law of the town. Then you had a child, weaned her at 3 months old, and dumped her in my lap so the two of you could go off and enjoy your life together. I was her nanny for all those years, and when something happened to Lily, you were so scared of your wife that you blamed me for everything. Your wife was so angry she tried to come at me with a kitchen knife. Have you forgotten? Martin's face was pale. He screamed for Grandma Eleanor to shut up. He lunged forward wildly, but I was quick and jumped in front of Grandma Eleanor to protect her. The big, burly man took out his anger on me, grabbing me by the collar and slamming me to the ground. My head hit the sharp corner of the coffee table. A warm liquid trickled down my scalp. Grandma Eleanor shrieked dramatically. You killed her! Martin frantically clamped a hand over her mouth. Don't say that. I just pushed her lightly. It's not that serious. I have to go. I'll be back in a couple of days. This house is getting sold, one way or another. After he left, Grandma Eleanor helped me up, pressing under my nose and patting my face just as I had done for her. I snapped my eyes open and made a goofy face at her, which made her jump. Don't worry, I said. I'm tough. We looked at each other and smiled, as if we had both just been reborn. Grandma Eleanor, is your mind really clear now? She scratched her head. That Martin is good for something after all. A sight like him is enough to piss off a corpse back to life. He provoked me so much my head actually cleared right up, ha ha ha. No, I have to write down all the terrible things he's done while I can still think straight. Otherwise, I'll forget it all again in a few days. When I brought her a pen and paper, she waved them away, saying it was too much trouble. Instead, she took my hand in hers and began to recall the past. It turned out that when Grandma Eleanor was a young woman, she was a person of poetry and art. She loved to read and paint and had even been an elementary school teacher for a few years. Later, she married Grandpa, a kindred spirit, and they were deeply in love. If there was one regret in their life, it was that they were never able to have a child of their own. A doctor's diagnosis dashed their hopes, so they decided to adopt a baby boy, whom they named Martin. The old man doted on Martin, spoiling him absolutely rotten. The boy grew up completely entitled, with no sense of gratitude for the parents who had given him everything. When Martin was 20, his parents were in a serious car accident. Grandpa died on the spot, and Grandma Eleanor was left with a brain injury that required lifelong medication. That's when her mind started to go, and Martin began to resent her for it. Later, with his good looks and a silver tongue, Martin managed to marry a wealthy woman without spending a single dime. They called it getting married, but he basically married into her family, living in his in-laws' grand house and only remembering his mother when he was broke and needed money. Then Lily was born, and at just 3 months old, Martin and his wife brought her over. Mom, you didn't pay for our wedding, so you can at least pitch in with some work, he'd said. Grandma Eleanor, already feeling guilty about her son and always feeling she hadn't done enough for him, agreed without a second thought. She raised Lily, waking up several times a night to give her a bottle, terrified her granddaughter would go hungry. Slowly, the child grew up and became very attached to her grandmother, but she never expected this to stir up jealousy in her daughter-in-law. Mom, have you been bad-mouthing me to Lily? Why isn't she close to me? Her daughter-in-law nitpicked everything she did. If the baby got sick, it was her fault. If the baby's clothes were dirty, it was her fault. If the baby had a few too many snacks, it was still her fault. Martin, who was completely dependent on his wealthy father-in-law, didn't dare breathe a word in front of his wife, so there was no hope of him ever defending his mother. Life went on like this, full of arguments, and the child slowly grew up and started school. That winter, Martin told Grandma Eleanor that a friend of his was coming over and asked if she could host him for a few days. In the snow and ice, the man looked like he had traveled a long way. He knocked once on the door and then fainted from the cold right on her doorstep. Grandma Eleanor helped him inside and immediately called Martin. On the phone, Martin lowered his voice to a whisper. Mom, I'm out drinking with my father-in-law. That guy is an old classmate of mine. I owe him some money, and who knew he'd be so persistent, chasing me all the way out here in this cold. Don't you dare tell my wife, you hear me? If she finds out, she'll skin me alive. As Grandma Eleanor told this part of the story, her whole body trembled. I was so confused. How could I have let a man I knew nothing about stay in my house? After a few sips of hot soup from Grandma Eleanor, the man woke up. His eyes darted around the room, finally landing on Lily. Lily was in middle school by then, and she had inherited Martin's good looks. She was tall and graceful, like a young sapling. She helped Grandma Eleanor serve the meal, sweetly calling the man Uncle. At the dinner table, Grandma Eleanor asked him how he knew Martin. The man didn't hold back. He said they had met at a card table. Martin was a terrible player and always lost, so he'd given him a few pointers and they became best buds. That son of yours, the man sneered. He's a real slippery eel. It's time for him to pay me back what he owes me. I've tracked him all the way to his home. If he doesn't show his face, what's he trying to pull? A fire of anger flared inside Grandma Eleanor. She wanted to grab a stick and chase the man out of her house immediately. She started clanging pots and slamming bowls, her face turning sour. Martin isn't here. Finish your food and get out, she ordered. The man just picked his teeth with a toothpick, acting as if he hadn't heard a word. His old mother and his daughter are here. I don't believe for a second that he won't show up. Terrified, Grandma Eleanor grabbed Lily's hand and ran for the door. The man chased after them, grabbed a mop from the corner, and swung it hard at Grandma Eleanor's head. She collapsed to the floor. When she came to, the house was in chaos. Martin was weeping, telling his sob story to a crowd of neighbors who had gathered. Everyone, you be the judge. Isn't this old woman crazy? She acts all kind and saintly outside, bringing strangers into her home. But behind closed doors, she's a monster. Our Lily is so scared of her she doesn't even dare to take a piece of meat at the dinner table. My poor, poor Lily. Grandma Eleanor's head was still spinning when she saw her daughter-in-law charging at her with a kitchen knife. After people managed to hold her back, the daughter-in-law plopped down on the floor and began spewing venomous accusations. This mother-in-law of mine looks like a saint, but she's as poisonous as a snake. What did I ever do to her? Why did she have to hurt my daughter? Grandma Eleanor felt the world spin. Everyone was blaming her, but she couldn't remember what had happened. She looked at me, tears streaming down her face. You know, at that moment, I really believed I had hurt Lily. I couldn't remember anything, and everyone said it was me. Even I believed it. I've carried that blame for so many years that the lies started to feel like the truth. After getting it all out, Grandma Eleanor slapped her thighs and let out a long, mournful cry. I finally said it. I can finally breathe again. I didn't know how to comfort her. I just squeezed her hand tightly. Don't be afraid, I whispered. From now on, we'll only look forward. We won't talk about all those sad things from the past anymore. A few days later, I went with her to the hospital. After a full checkup, she received a new prescription for her medication. She told me not to worry about her. I can't fall apart now. I have more important things to do. for my late husband, and for Lily. I accepted her offer of financial help and re enrolled in school. The high school was in town a few miles from Grandma Eleanor's house, so I chose to live in the dorms during the week. My grades had always been good, and after doing well on my middle school exams, I had gotten into the county's top high school. But I had only been back for 2 months of the fall semester when I was called home for my grandmother's funeral. After the funeral, they wouldn't let me go back to school. My stepmother claimed I had too many of my own ideas, that reading too many books would make me wild and unmanageable. My dad, who was already reluctant to spend money on my education, readily agreed with her. "Honey, it's not that Dad doesn't want to support you," he'd said, even managing to squeeze out a few fake tears. "It's just that your stepmom controls the money in this house, so my hands are tied. If you have to blame someone, blame your bad luck. Blame your real mom for dying so young." His hypocrisy made my heart sink like a stone. I was kept at home and not allowed to see anyone. When the temperature plummeted, I started acting much more obedient on the surface. My stepmother chose the coldest day of the year to finally confront me. Her intentions were vicious. In that freezing weather, she either wanted me to die or hoped to force me into a desperate, wrong path. She never could have imagined that I would not only survive, but also find my way back to a classroom. Every weekend, I went back to Grandma Eleanor's house. I did everything I could to make her happy. Sometimes she'd mistake me for someone else, and I would just go along with it, playing whatever role she needed me to. Her memo book had new entries now. "It's good to be alive. I never thought I'd hear laughter in this house again." Seeing that, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. To make up for the classes I'd missed, I studied like a maniac, memorizing vocabulary, even on my way to the bathroom. My teachers and classmates were incredibly supportive and helped me a lot. My grades improved bit by bit, but I still had some catching up to do. After skipping my weekend visits for a while to focus on my studies, I finally made a little more progress. When winter break started, I saw Grandma Eleanor again. She gave me a mysterious smile. "It's all taken care of," she said. It turned out that Martin had been harassing her nonstop. Left with no other choice, she had collected a sample of his hair and had a DNA test done. She also dug up the old adoption papers from a dusty trunk in the attic. Once she had everything in order, she consulted a lawyer. "In this situation, you can legally sever all ties with your adopted son. But at your age, you need to think about who will take care of you in the future," the lawyer advised. Grandma Eleanor just laughed. "Care for me? He's a gambling addict who has already squandered the entire inheritance his father left him. Now he's after my house. If I don't draw a line in the sand now, I'll end up homeless under a bridge. Can I really count on someone like that to care for me?" Martin, of course, refused to agree. He threw a fit at her house every few days. The neighbors couldn't stand the constant commotion anymore and notified Martin's wife, Brenda. When Brenda arrived, she happened to overhear Grandma Eleanor and Martin rehashing the past, and a seed of doubt was planted in her mind. Brenda was a fiery woman and couldn't swallow such an insult. She quickly dug up all of Martin's dirty secrets. He knelt before her, crying his eyes out, but it didn't stop his powerful father-in-law from coming down on him hard. He lost his job, and his car and house were taken away. Brenda cut him loose without a second thought, kicking him out of her life for good. His misfortunes twisted his mind completely. He repeatedly came to the house to beat Grandma Eleanor, and it was all caught on a security camera she had installed. Grandma Eleanor used the evidence to get a restraining order and then successfully terminated the adoption. Martin hit dead ends everywhere he turned and spent his days wandering the streets. One night, he got drunk and harassed a woman. He was caught and beaten half to death. His attackers left him there in the freezing cold, and when Martin was found the next day, he had frozen solid. After telling me all this, Grandma Eleanor fell silent for a long time. Her face showed no sign of triumphant revenge, only a deep and profound sorrow. That night, she added another entry to her memo book. "Sigh, I've lived a whole life, and in the end, it was all for nothing. It's time for this old thing to close her eyes for good." The next morning at breakfast, I told her I was going to get a part-time job. "I'm free during the winter break anyway. I found a tutoring gig. I can earn a lot of money every day. But there's one catch. They don't provide meals." So, my dear grandma, I'll have to trouble you for my 3 meals a day. She stared at me for a long moment, then said, So, I am useful for something after all. The tutoring job was near the school, a half-hour bike ride from Grandma Eleanor's house. My lunch break was 2 hours long, so I spent half of it just on the commute. Every single day, I would rush home, covered in dust from the road, and she would have a hot meal waiting on the table at the perfect moment. The second I sat down, a bowl of steaming soup would be placed in front of me. Just before the new year, I finished my last tutoring session. The child's mother paid me and insisted that I stay for dinner. I had no choice but to call Grandma Eleanor and let her know. It was almost 8 o'clock by the time I got home. The winter days were short and the nights were long. I rode my bike under the glow of the streetlights as snowflakes began to drift down from the sky. My pockets were full of money and my heart was full of joy. The thought of a warm little nest waiting for me just ahead made me pedal so fast, my bike practically shot sparks from the pavement. As I neared the intersection by her house, I slammed on the brakes. There was a familiar figure standing ahead. She was wearing a thick cotton coat, a hat, and a scarf, standing perfectly still in the falling snow. Snow had collected on her head, her shoulders, and her eyelashes. The streetlight cast a silver glow around her, making her look like an angel who had descended to earth. In the blink of an eye, spring arrived with its blooming flowers. I noticed she had updated her memo book again. This old thing has made it through another year. Spring isn't too hot or too cold, so it won't be too ugly when I go. A day later, she added another line. No, if I go, what will happen to that girl? When I came home for the weekend, I linked my arm through hers and whined playfully. Grandma, the food at school is awful. My stomach hurts from hunger all the time. I clutched my stomach dramatically, pretending to be in great pain. She looked worried. Really? Maybe we should talk to the school and have you come home for your meals every day. I had a little money left over from my part-time job after paying my tuition, so I bought her a small, simple silver ring. She put it on and admired it from every angle, grinning from ear to ear. Look, my granddaughter bought this for me. Isn't it beautiful? A passing neighbor pursed her lips and tried to burst her bubble, saying she'd been bought off with a cheap trinket. They quietly pulled Grandma Eleanor aside. You really are getting senile, treating a stray girl from who knows where like a priceless treasure. Don't be fooled by her age. She's definitely got a scheme. Grandma Eleanor ignored their winks and whispers, waving a hand dismissively. What do you all know? This girl is a good kid. The group was relentless. Your son is gone. What are you going to do now? She replied, I'm not afraid. If I have to, I'll go collect scrap to survive. It's not like I'm depending on you to feed me. Why are you all so worried? After we left the crowd, I gave her a thumbs up. She patted my head. You've got a real talent for it, you know. Sharp eyes, too. It only took you half a day to map out all the trash cans in the city. If I ever do have to collect junk, you'd be my human radar. I suggested that she move out of that neighborhood. People's prejudices are hard to change, and with a long road still ahead of us, we couldn't keep absorbing all that negativity. She rented a small studio apartment near my high school and cooked for me every day. At every mealtime, her small figure could be seen pacing patiently at the school gate. We were constantly on each other's minds. A single glance was enough to know that the other was safe. Nourished by all kinds of delicious food, we both started to get a little rounder. When you're loved, you just sort of bloom. We were both putting on happy weight. High school was intense and fulfilling. I wound myself up like a clock, determined to fight for my future. When I went to take my college entrance exams, all the other students had their parents with them, cheering them on. I wasn't the least bit envious. The moment I had walked out of that house, I had cut all ties with them in my heart. With Grandma Eleanor by my side, I walked into the exam hall full of confidence. I performed consistently well and did great on the exams. When it came time to choose a college, I applied to my dream school in the South. When the thick acceptance letter finally arrived in the mail, she snatched it from my hands. She leaned over and kissed the envelope a few times, then turned to look at me as if she could never get enough of the sight. Wow, how are you so smart? This is amazing, just amazing, she kept repeating over and over. I watched her with a mischievous grin. Grandma, you're holding it upside down. She blushed and quickly flipped the letter over. I know that. I did it on purpose. I used to be an elementary school teacher, you know. You think I'd make a simple mistake like that? The two of us burst out laughing. Without realizing it, it felt like our roles had reversed. Grandma Eleanor seemed to be getting younger and more vibrant every day, while I was becoming the mature, steady one. My girl is going to be successful, she'd say. Now Grandma can rest easy. Even if I'm buried 6 feet in the ground, I'll have no regrets. A few days later, my stepmother appeared before me, holding a bag of apples, her face blooming into a wide, fake smile. I heard you got into college. See, all my hard work wasn't for nothing. People really do need to go through some hardship in order to grow. Kicking you out back then was the right thing to do, wasn't it? She looked at me expectantly, as if waiting for me to say thank you. I wanted to tell her to go to hell. I had never seen anyone so utterly shameless. I spat on the ground at her feet. She just grinned and tried to grab my arm, but Grandma Eleanor stepped up and bumped right into her. Oh my! Why did you hit me? Oh no, my head hurts so much. Grandma Eleanor winked at me, clutching her head as she started to theatrically crumple to the ground. I shrieked at my stepmother. What are you doing, hitting an old woman? If something happens to her, can you afford to pay for it? She was completely stunned. What are you talking about? When did I hit her? She bumped into me. Have you no sense? I didn't listen. I didn't care. I just started making a scene, insisting I was taking Grandma Eleanor to the hospital. Terrified of the consequences, she shook us off and vanished in a flash. Grandma Eleanor's eyes crinkled into a genuine smile. Did you learn that? When you're dealing with people like her, you have to be even more shameless than they are. I grabbed her hand, twisting my body like a pretzel. Oh, I'm too dumb. I could never learn in one go. Next time she comes, you'll have to give me a proper lesson. She poked me on the head. You're a lot livelier than when you first came. You're like a little monkey now. It's all your fault for spoiling me, I pouted, nuzzling into her side. After I begged and pleaded, she finally agreed to take the train south with me to my new university. At first, she refused no matter what I said. I put on a pitiful face and started to cry. I've never traveled so far before. What if I run into bad people? You have to come with me or I'll be too scared. I finally managed to coax her into coming with me to a strange new city. We rented a small apartment near the campus. And after we got everything settled, I unlocked a shared e-bike and told her I was going to give her a tour of my campus. She sat on the back like a little kid, her arms wrapped tightly around my waist, her happy giggles echoing through every corner of the university grounds. I can't believe it, she said, her voice full of wonder. I never thought I'd get to walk on a university campus in my lifetime. If I closed my eyes for good tomorrow, I'd die happy. Don't say that, I said, pretending to be angry. Don't even joke about it. We came all this way. We don't know anyone here. I'm counting on you. You have to take good care of yourself. If anyone bullies me, you have to have my back. She nodded cheerfully, patting her chest to reassure me. After graduation, I found a good job in the city. Grandma Eleanor got older. She would still mistake me for other people from time to time. In her mind, I was all sorts of different people, and I accepted every role without question, agreeing to be whomever she thought I was in that moment. She had something to look forward to in life and became a cheerful mascot that everyone in our apartment building adored. A year later, her memo book was updated. I've been feeling a bit off lately. Counting on my fingers, I guess I'm 73. There's an old saying about 73 and 84. Even if death doesn't come for you, you go on your own. I've lived this long. It's more than enough. Then she collapsed. On the way to the hospital, my hands were trembling uncontrollably. I had never been so scared in my entire life. This woman, a stranger I had met by pure chance, had given me all the warmth and love in her world. Was it really time to say goodbye? In the emergency room, doctors and nurses were a flurry of activity around her. I felt like all the air had been sucked out of the room, and I slumped to the floor, my legs unable to support me. I grabbed a passing doctor's white coat, repeating the same words over and over again. Save her. Please save her. Don't give up. Please, please don't give up. When Grandma Eleanor was finally wheeled out of the ER, she was covered in tubes. I threw myself onto her bed and sobbed. Grandma, don't go. I'm not even married yet. What if I end up with a jerk? What if I get a monster for a mother-in-law? A useless person like me will get beaten 3 times a day. You have to wake up and have my back. Exhausted from crying, I closed my eyes and dozed off in the uncomfortable hospital chair. In my dream, I was back in that first cold winter. That hand, with skin as dry as bark, was stroking my head. I jolted awake. It wasn't a dream. Grandma Eleanor's hand was on my head. She was awake. My face was sticky with dried snot and tears. My mouth opened and closed a few times, but no sound came out. "Young lady," she said, her voice weak but clear. "I remember now. You're not the housekeeper my son hired, and you're not Lily. Who are you? Why did you climb into my house in the middle of the night? Your clothes are so thin, and your shoes are falling apart. Aren't you cold? Here, let Grandma warm your hands for you." I held out my hand. She blew her warm breath on it, telling me not to be afraid. "I'm not scary. Why are you trembling? I have a granddaughter, you know. She's about your age. We're so close." Her eyes gazed into the air, as if searching for something far away. "Where is my Lily? Where did she go? Why hasn't she come to see her grandma?" I cupped her face in my hands, as if I were holding the most priceless treasure in the world. "Grandma," I whispered, "I am Lily. How could you not recognize your own granddaughter?" She stared at me for a long, long time, and then a sweet, contented smile spread across her lips. "That's right. This is my granddaughter. How could I ever forget?" The night grew deep and quiet. She closed her eyes, happy. I believed that now she had a new reason to hold on. She couldn't bear to leave me. She would live to be 100.